Well, guys, it looks to me like maybe I should have waited.
To these brothers after these legendary coaches are leaving, I don't know how to say this, but somebody might need to be like, yo, thanks, but no thanks, homie. Why we got to get the hardest job you got, bruh? Like, can't you let some...
Mayo feels pretty racist. And by the way, I agree with that. I also think if I were running the team, I probably would have fired him. Like, both things can be true. The folks that every time...
So I released a video on the Mayo firing, and I talk about the other narrative that the people are trying to set, and that right there being the narrative of the Patriots obviously fired Mayo to bring in Mike Vrabel. Even though I'll be explaining to you guys over the course of this video that while that right there may happen, it also may not happen, because guess what? There are other teams that will be vying for him in other situations that Vrabel may want to get into. However, the point of this video is to talk about the race grift, and of course also not only the race grift, but why it is that these people start the race grift the minute somebody gets fired. Typically somebody who is of a certain color that is obviously not white, and definitely I would just say the color that's most melanated. However, I'm going to cite in this video other examples of how it is that this right is not always the case, nor is it normally ever the case. And of course, I'm also going to be explaining to you guys once again why it is that the Rooney Rule is a load of crap. So make sure you guys stick around for the full bit. But I did say that I should have waited. I should have waited probably 6-7 more hours. I probably should have waited. And the reason why I should have waited is because of what you guys saw at the very beginning. The race grifters came out of the middle of nowhere, and they went ahead and started with the whole everything is racist shtick. This was the reason why this coach was fired. And, of course, also given the fact that Antonio Pierce, head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, I almost called them Oakland Raiders, was also fired as well. By the way, I think that if you look at that organization, who runs the organization, I think that there might be a reason why it was fired that's not got to do with race, especially given the fact that one of the people that they plan on interviewing for head coach is in fact black. Yeah, I think that there's got more to do with the fact that the Raiders organization is not exactly a competently ran organization. We'll talk about that a little bit more over the course of this video. But speaking of those race scripters, let us go ahead and start. Let me go ahead and just kind of roll this montage for you.
To these people who were elevating and giving these jobs to these brothers after these legendary coaches are leaving, I don't know how to say this, but somebody might need to be like, yo, thanks, but no thanks, homie. Why we got to get the hardest job you got, bruh? Like, can't you let some white man come in here and take these flames, and then I come take the job after him? You ever think about that? I understand I might sound like an ingrate, but at the same time, I'm looking at what's going on to my brothers, and it's just kind of like I'm glad the contracts are guaranteed, but we would all acknowledge this is not the greatest position for success.
A lot of the criticism of Mayo feels pretty racist. And by the way, I agree with that. I also think if I were running the team, I probably would have fired him. Like, both things can be true. The folks that every time he's mentioned tweet DEI hire are cretins. It also can be true that just objectively weighing the football stuff, the first year from before the year even started to every press conference throughout, a lot of it went really poorly. And I almost feel like some of the, I'm not saying you, KW, but some of the defense of him has almost been, I don't want to be lumped in with these creeps.
Real quick, I think that Nick Wright deserves a special section, which I will get to more so towards the end. So make sure you guys sit tight. I'll be right back to Nick Wright. But let me go ahead and get back on track. So you obviously saw one guy, and then you saw Nick wrong. And, of course, there's also the one that I'm playing for you guys in the B-roll footage, which, of course, is Stephen A. Smith, Shannon Sharp. This right here is the clip that I had ran in that video at the very, very beginning. And the reason why I ran that clip was because I had felt that Stephen A. Smith saying, well, maybe they should just go ahead and call it White Monday because Doug Peterson got fired as well. Doug Peterson, by the way, has a Super Bowl ring. Also, to go on top of that, Frank Reich has a Super Bowl ring, who, by the way, was the offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles team that Doug Peterson coached that did win the Super Bowl against New England. He got fired in less than a year. And also, to go on top of that, Nathaniel Hackett. Keep Nathaniel Hackett's name in mind over the course of this video, because I'm about to play for you guys something else that was played roughly at around the same time that Antonio Pierce was let go. And this right here, of course, is one that I want you guys to pay very, very close attention to. And, of course, there's also another one coming from another individual that I've actually been very, very critical of this week and even made fun of, who also made pretty much the same point. But let's play this.
Really, I don't know all the dynamics of what's going on in that building. But when you see he was one and done, ownership got impatient after asking him to replace the greatest head coach of all time with a very lousy roster. I think the Mike Vrabel factor is significant in this. I don't know if Mike Vrabel, if he wasn't available, I don't know if they would have made this move. But it also, look, Gerard Mayo made a lot of mistakes with the media, a lot of things the way maybe he coached his team, the way he handles coordinators, the way, the hiring of the coordinators. But we see other coaches get patience, right? Other coaches get patience with this. And this is, but I was just up there a couple weeks ago. The local media, he was done. They were cooking him. The fan base was cooking him. So I think when everything kind of turned against him, he's not ready. He came in a year too soon. You don't hear that about some other first-year coaches, even though they struggle. He's a former player. It's just, again, I don't know all the dynamics of why it turned so hard against him when he has a very good quarterback. It's just interesting to see. And I have to say this because, we're hearing about Antonio Pierce possibly being a one and done in Las Vegas as well. And when you talk about minority head coaches, this is a frustration because a lot of times they come into bad situations. That's usually when head coaching turnover takes place. And a lot of times black head coaches feel they don't get really a ripe opportunity to grow and develop like their white counterparts. And I'm not saying that Gerard Mayo didn't deserve to be kept, on lack of merit, whatever. But this is just a frustration that is expressed to me oftentimes by coaches of color. When you look at like some of the last 5 head coaches let go, one and done. David Culley in Houston, Lovie Smith in Houston. Now they were replaced by a black head coach, D'Amico Ryans. But Gerard Mayo, Nate Hackett, Frank Reich, all these guys didn't.
Now, guys, excuse the header. Now, the reason why I played that clip was so that way you guys could pick up on the very end of the video or the very end of the clip. You see, it's more about percentages than it is actual raw numbers. And I want to go ahead and put this out here now. You see, most white guys, when they enter the world of the NFL, they enter the world of football as a whole, most of them don't have the athleticism that a lot of black men do. And, of course, to go on top of that, there's also a lot more white men in population. There's a lot more white men altogether in the sport itself, but they typically tend to go more down the rabbit hole of, or more down the path of like administrative things. The type of stuff that would lead to management someday. Coaching is also there as well because coaching is also a part of it. But still at the same time, more white guys tend to head towards that route than they do the actual playing route because, let's be honest, most black men are built better for the sport. And also to go on top of that, most black men are much, much more athletic. I mean, take a look at each and every single NFL team. You'll notice something. Outside the quarterback, pretty much the rest of the team is, let's just say, non-white. It's pretty daggone black for the most part, which is not a bad thing. I'm just simply saying that the sport typically tends to have mostly black offensive linemen, mostly black defensive linemen, mostly black wide receivers, mostly black defensive backs, mostly black linebackers. Basically what I'm trying to say to you guys is that black men, for the most part, are definitely more in demand for playing. And I can already hear somebody in the comment section saying this white boy has come out here and he's basically said that we're only good for entertainment. Oh, stop it. Don't even start with that crap. Look at D'Amico Ryans. He's a success. Look at Mike Tomlin. He's a success. Lovie Smith was very successful in Chicago. And don't get me wrong, I think he was done over in Houston, but he was replaced by a black man, as old boy mentioned. The point is, it just so happens to be that more white guys typically tend to take the non-playing route. That's the real truth about the situation. And also to go on top of that, there's a lot more white people in the league, but don't act like white people don't get fired from their job. Some men just don't get a contract negotiation. Some men don't get re-signed. We're still waiting on Mike McCarthy. The point is this right here. It's not a race thing. It never has been a race thing. And yes, there are cases, don't get me wrong, where there have been head coaches that just got screwed over. Let's go back to Gerard Mayo for a second, because somebody in the video that I had posted the other day pointed out that they thought I was full of crap because I did not mention the fact that Gerard Mayo got hired by the New England Patriots because he was connected to the organization, had been a player for the organization, a lot like Mike Vrabel has been. And my response would be, okay, so if he got hired by the organization, if he was connected to the organization, then don't you think that him being friendly with the organization and being a part of that dynasty, don't you think that maybe Bob Kraft would give him another year? I mean, it's not like Mike Vrabel was a head coach of a team this year. I mean, he could have been hired to be the head coach after Bill Belichick was fired. I'm just pointing that out. Mike Vrabel was in Cleveland as a consultant. And by the way, it's not exactly a guarantee that you'll get him, but we'll get to that more towards the end. But I did say that there would be a special place for Nick Wright in this video that I want to talk about. And I'll talk about that after his Fox Sports colleague, a guy that I've been making fun of all week, Emmanuel Acho, basically makes a very good point. Let's watch.
I had to do a little bit of research. Over the last 10 years, you have 53 white head coaches that have been hired. This is the last 10 years. Those are the names on the list. Do not bother your time reading all of them. Just glance at some. Over that same last 10-year period, 14 black head coaches have been hired. Again, do not bother your whole time reading all the names on the list, but 10-year period, 53 white head coaches, 14 black head coaches. 53 white head coaches, 14 black head coaches. That in and of itself, many would suggest is a problem. But here's probably the bigger problem. See, when you look at the 53 white head coaches, 6 of them have been one and done. When you look at the 14 black head coaches, 5 of them have been one and done. So by number, white head coaches are one and done more often than black head coaches. But by percentage, it completely pales in comparison.
It seems to me like the whole race grift at the end of the day just simply feeds it just simply feeds the YouTube feed. That's all it does. I mean, seriously. I mean, the most amount of clicks that I get on my channel are typically clicks on videos like this right here where I talk about the race grift or race grifters. I'm just simply saying, I mean, as a small YouTuber, I mean, it just feels to me like this right here is all just manufactured. Trust me, there are some true believers out there. I'm pretty sure you guys have figured out who the hell they are. But, of course, these people, for the most part, are reading scripted lines, stuff that's already been written and handed down to them by somebody up top, who, by the way, is probably white. Which, of course, would be the sad irony of the entire situation. But let me get back on track. You know, I've been making fun of Emmanuel Acho pretty much all week over the Fox Sports sex scandal, but of course I got to give this man some kudos for this take here. You guys know me, even if it's somebody I do not like, if they're right about something, I will put it in my video and I will give them kudos for being right. I mean, even a broken clock is right twice a day. I mean, am I right? Still, though, you guys obviously heard all of that. Now, let me just talk about Nick Wright for a very, very quick second. Chances are, if you've been watching this channel for a while, chances are when I do talk about sports, which I'm going to be talking a lot more about sports and pop culture as a whole, this also includes movies and films, gaming, etc., 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 then you know that there are 2 people that I absolutely cannot stand. Nick Wright and Colin Cowherd. I criticize Stephen A. Smith a lot on this channel because of the race baiting. I criticize Ryan Clark a lot because of his bad takes or his past bad takes. I criticize Shannon Sharp from time to time when he has a stupid take. However, I don't dislike them. I really don't. Well, Ryan Clark maybe, but Stephen A. Smith, Shannon Sharp, I don't really dislike. I really don't. But Nick Wright and Colin Cowherd, I absolutely freaking despise. Let me talk about Nick Wright instead of Colin Cowherd, because I'm pretty sure you guys know my feelings on Cowherd. I've already said it in the video before, but Nick Wright kind of suffers from the exact same thing. The difference is that Nick Wright is more annoying. And Nick Wright could not be any more wrong in his criticism. But let me say this, though, about Nick Wright, because I don't really think Nick Wright is somebody to take serious, a lot like Skip Bayless. Except Skip is Skip. Still, the point is this right here. There's a joke we have about Nick Wright. His real name is Nick Wrong. That's what we call him. If you want proof of God's existence, if you want proof that God has a sense of humor, there you go, Nick Wright. Okay, there you go, Nick Wright. A guy who looks like that there, who is always wrong. I highly suggest you guys watch Dom2K's video on the MJ-LeBron debate, where he focuses primarily on Nick Wright, and Nick Wright hinging his argument on one lovely statistic that quite frankly gets smashed in the video. I advise you guys check it out. I just may link it in the description box. Nick Wright is one of those guys who just never gets corrected, and he's allowed to just talk, almost like I'm talking right now. The difference is that Nick Wright's never really and truly been put in his place. And, of course, if he had ever been put in his place, he would probably get triggered and fold like a cheap suit. That's all I'm going to say about Nick Wright for the purpose of this video. But why? Why go with the grift? Well, I'm reminded of a TED Talk involving Eric Bischoff that I'll also link in the description box for you guys. Eric Bischoff, as you guys may or may not know, former wrestling personality, head of the creative at WCW, even worked for the WWE at one point in time in TNA. He basically pointed out this thing called cheap heat. I even did a video a while back that I had to pull down because I allowed the clips to play just a little bit too long during his explanation of this. He was talking about his career and how it was that the mainstream media was using the pro wrestling model to get clicks, to generate revenue. That's what they were doing, is try to get people emotional. The sports world was doing the exact same thing. It's part of the reason why it is that this sports studies graduate chose not to pursue going into the sports field professionally, because in 2021, that right there is when I really and truly began to notice the agenda. Basically, what these people do is that they bring up this stuff because they know that stuff like, say, programs like, say, First Take, Speak for Yourself, all these sports debate shows, which is pretty much what SportsCenter has become nowadays, or ESPN has become, and Fox Sports, is not even highlights, Basically, what they do is they just have these debate shows, and these clips go viral. They put it out there on YouTube. I want you to imagine something right now, okay? Think about this for a second. Could these people go anywhere near as viral? Could there be any more additional revenue if the internet did not exist as it is? I mean, you've got YouTube, you've got Rumble, you've got alt tech, you've got websites, all that type of stuff there. So you see, back in the day, you would get up in the morning, you would see the highlights from Sports Center, and you might get a little bit of conversation at night. You might get Baseball Tonight, NFL Live. But the point is this right here. Back in those days, you couldn't clip the stuff and put it here on the internet like you can today. And that right there is the reason why they do this, is to gen up clicks. Now, obviously, it's a part of the agenda. The agenda that I've talked about on this channel here before, it's very much a part of the manipulation. But still, though, at the same time, you got to ask yourself a question. Would these people be able to have these stupid narratives if the internet did not exist? Trust me, if somebody like Stephen A. Smith said something that was slightly racial, somebody would have picked up on it back, I would say back in 2005, 2006. They would have called ESPN, people would have boycotted, and people would have demanded he get fired, and he'd probably not have a career at this moment in time. Same thing with all these former players and these pundits. That right there is where I'm getting at with it. It's called feeding the machine. That's what media manipulation is all about. This is what these people do. However, it also fits in with the overall agenda of dividing the nation, and they're using the pro wrestling model to do so. And that pro wrestling model, which, by the way, pro wrestling is something that they used to make fun of, is what they are now using to divide the nation further. And it just so happened to be that most of America is sports fans, so yeah, there you go. Divide the people even amongst the lines when it comes to sports. But I did tell you guys that I was going to talk a little bit about the Antonio Pierce situation. I was going to be very, very brief with this right here. And I was also going to talk a little bit about the Vrabel situation. So bear with me for a very quick second before we close this video down. Back in 2018, the Packers, they fired Mike McCarthy, okay? I'm a Packers fan, so obviously I've got a little bit more information on this right here than some others. If you're a Packers fan, you probably know this story as well. We ended up hiring Matt LaFleur. There was a guy on Facebook, and bear with me, I'll get to Vrabel here in a second, because trust me, it connects. There was a guy on Facebook who had one of those Packer pages where he would start talking about Packers updates. He didn't put it on YouTube or anything like that. I don't even remember what the guy's name is. He was a bald-headed guy, kind of like me, of course, but I'm much, much more handsome than he is. But still, though, people in the chat were saying, go hire Josh McDaniels. Now, me being around watching the NFL for a very long time, playing sports at some point in time, even before my days when I was in the military, and then, of course, the days after I got out and stuff, I still messed around with it a little bit. We knew about Josh McDaniels, and we knew about what happened when he was the head coach of Denver. So it just so happened to be that when he was available, it looked like the Indianapolis Colts were going to hire him. And then, of course, he backed out of it, went back to New England. And then, of course, eventually he gets the job in Las Vegas. Well, he signs this massive contract with the Raiders. And, of course, they fire him not long after he's hired. I think they gave him a season and a half, 2 years. If you're a Raiders fan, please back me up on this. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And Antonio Pierce got the job. Antonio Pierce was given the job for a short bit, and it looked to me like he had the boys playing for him, even though the team really and truly wasn't any good. I think in the case of Antonio Pierce, he was given an additional year to evaluate him to see if he could be a good coach down the road, or if he could at least get the guys playing in the right direction. Well, seeing how it is that the ownership group has people like, say, Tom Brady in there, they probably thought to themselves, yeah, Antonio may not be great for us long term. Now, Antonio Pierce could get a job later on down the road as a head coach, or possibly become a coach on the staff here in the near future going into next year, and then get the head coaching job somewhere else. I hope it works out for Antonio Pierce, but I think that right there is the reason why Antonio Pierce was fired. Whereas in the case of Gerard Mayo, it was just a complete total crap show. And I think I explained to everybody in that video there exactly what probably got him fired before the season even started, because the last thing you want is guys thinking about race. I mean, you live together, you play together, you go on the road together. The last thing you want to do is be divided in the locker room. And that obviously showed based upon the New England Patriots season. And I want to go ahead and say it one more time for those in the back. There are black men who have coached NFL teams and been very, very successful. Now, as far as this whole notion about not being given a chance, I don't really think that right there jives fully in either of these situations. I mean, Robert Kraft himself even said that he felt that the Gerard Mayo situation was an untenable situation that he was taking over. By the way, to the Patriots fans out there, you are going to miss Bill Belichick in about 2 or 3 years. That's all I'm going to say on that. And speaking of the Patriots, the automatic assumption is that Mike Vrabel will be the head coach of that team next year. I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys right now that while that is likely, it's not a guarantee. Let me explain. There's a guy who is a part of the ownership group of the Raiders. His name is Tom Brady. Tom Brady, also connected to Mike Vrabel, won many Super Bowls with Mike Vrabel. I almost called him Vrabels. Yeah, I think that he could be lured to Las Vegas. Possibly. Also, Tom Brady is really good friends with a quarterback in New York. That man's name is Aaron Rodgers. And he just threw 4 touchdowns in his last performance, and everybody's been saying he's washed up, even though recently, and this is a guy coming off an Achilles tear, he went 14-1, meaning 14 touchdowns, 1 interception. Mike Vrabel is also very, very good friends with Aaron, too. Now, I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers is going to be in Las Vegas or anything. I'm just simply saying that the possibility of them being out there in Las Vegas together, all three, it's a possibility. Or Vrabel could be jilted by the Patriots not selecting him after Vrabel was fired from Tennessee after he was let go. He could be, a little bit salty about it, and he could end up going to the Jets. And by the way, I did mention before he was good friends with Rodgers. If you don't think these guys aren't texting one another back and forth on their plans, you would be absolutely crazy. And there's also one more possibility with the Patriots, and I want to go into this right before I close the video out. And that right there is the fact that Robert Kraft could actually, go with the guy that he originally envisioned to run the team, Josh McDaniels. Yes, I don't think it's fully crazy, and I don't think Josh McDaniels should be anywhere near an NFL football team as a head coach. We've already seen this happen twice. But still, though, that's who he envisioned running the team. Well, that's what he wanted when Belichick would be gone. But you guys tell me. Make sure you guys please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comments. I would love to hear what you guys have got to say, and I'll see you guys later.